It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 6, Episode 12. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
Hello, everybody.
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, how are you, sir? How are you?
I am doing okay, as if people can maybe hear it in my voice. I am fighting the ick that has been going around these past couple of weeks. So if I sound a little froggy and I don't get to my cough button as fast, now you know why. But other than that, I am doing okay.
Oh, I thought you were trying out for the Little Rascals as Froggy, but but you got the New Year ick. I get it.
I do, and everybody has it. My whole house is sick. Like it's a deal. Well, and as you know, we talked about off the air. Everybody got sick after Christmas.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm telling you, it's the worst thing about seeing family that you haven't seen for a while. Getting together with, strange people with bad habits.
Yep.
The immune system's all screwed up. I don't know.
Man.
It's a social media world. In the old days, you'd eat dirt and, you know what I mean? Just kind of give yourself the allergy salute and then shake hands and then have a meal together.
Yep. That is 1,000%, man.
That
is 1,000%.
You kept rocking. Now you send out a text, maybe a messenger thing, couple selfies. You meet somebody in person. You're in the hospital on a breathing machine, and they give you 2 days to live.
Well, thank God I don't know that.
Well, maybe not that bad yet, but that's a movie I was watching. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah? It irritates me to know it. I hate being sick. It's kind of like, I hate snow, right? I always say, if you're going to snow. Keep me in for a day or two and be done. That's it. Just like being sick. Make me sick. I'll be sick for a day or two and then go away. And then we're golden. But these things that linger, I hate it. I just hate when they linger. Like, I was saying to you off the air, like, I wake up one day, I'm like, I feel pretty good as the day goes on. I just want to jump out a window.
Yeah.
It's so bad, man. It's just so bad.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I struggled a little bit too over the holidays. Had something that just kind of, I'm not even sure where it came from, but it seemed like I was getting worse and worse and worse before even any sign of, hey, you know what, maybe I'm feeling better. And I'm convinced that the over-the-counter medicine that they sell, none of it works like it used to. It just doesn't work.
Dude, I don't swear, but the only thing I swear by when I'm not feeling well is Theraflu at night. That's the only, all this, stuff, it works, but then it just doesn't. I was never an over-the-counter, a lot of the doctors go, take over-the-counter stuff. And I'm sure some people it works. It never works on me.
Well, I think that the better tasting it's gotten, the less effective it is. If you remember when we were kids, the medicine we took, it was like drinking castor oil, and it worked.
Yeah.
It knocked it out in a short period of time. But now everything's fruity tasting and berry tasting, and you go, oh man, maybe I'll have a little bit more of this, and it's just none of it works. I think it's just flavored water.
You know what? I got to say, I'm going to break down the fourth wall here. When we talked about doing a show, right around the time you first got sick, you're like, oh man, I can't do it today. I'm not feeling that great. We'll do it tomorrow. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Whatever. And then when you hit me up the next day, you're like, bro, there's no way it's happening. Yeah. I was like, wow, you must have really gotten sick. Yeah, that's not, for you to go, I just, feeling a little under the weather. And the next day, you're like,
yeah, it was, and what's crazy is we were doing homemade flu bombs. Let me tell you something. I had so many flu bombs that I think I wore off the top layer of my tongue. Like, you know,
Oh,
I mean,
what,
well, because
hold on.
it's got
is
like
this something you could talk about on the air? Is this like a
Yeah, no,
is this
it's
a
like-
Michael's family secret or what?
Well, it's like salt and garlic and ginger, the cayenne pepper, all heated up, you know, scraped up and stuff. Then you can add a little lemon in there and stuff like that. But I mean,
What do you put it in water?
Yeah, you heat it up like a tea. Then you got shavings of garlic and ginger in there at the end that you wind up eating. But it's a little tough. But I started getting used to it very quickly. But man, I was having it 3-4 times a day. But it just wears off. My tongue was so rough. It's still a little, like, it's been over a week and something. My tongue's still a little whatever it is, but
Wait, does it work?
it does work. I'll tell you, it really did.
Really?
Yeah, you know, that homemade stuff. You know what I mean? What do they call it? I don't forget what they call it.
That our parents used to do?
Yeah, parents used to do. The pioneers used to do. You know, that kind of thing. It worked for them.
Well, that's just insane.
Yeah.
I will say, I will say that once we started once my house kind of went through the house, like we started popping zinc,
Yeah.
you know, under your tongue. And I'll tell you, you know, my aunt told me many, many years ago, she loved zinc. She thought that was the thing. And I'm like, really? And I tell you, again, I don't know. It could totally be nothing. But you have to start taking it as soon as you start feeling well. Like, it's got to be immediate. You know, it says it, you know, shortens the length of the cold, whatever you have. It helps. And I tell you, I have to say I took it every day this time, and I think it kind of worked. I think, you know, whatever zinc does, you know, it's like
Absolutely.
yeah, like I think it kind of helps. Like I would definitely be one to say
Well, even during the COVID height, they were saying, you know, vitamin C, zinc. Vitamin
right.
D,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The elderberry, that seems to give a little bit. Again, I mean, I don't know if it's, you know, these drastic effects, but I do think it takes a lot of the edge off. It gets you at least going in the right direction. Because a lot of that, like, emergency and all that kind of stuff that they have is based in there, right? The root material. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, I don't want to. I don't want to get in trouble for, you know, expressing, talking to medical things. Try this, do that, don't do this, and then all of a sudden, we're just kind of just shooting at the hip here, personal experience. 'Cause when you're sick, you start taking whatever you can just to try to get
do
better.
whatever
Yeah.
you can. And you know, and I'm a vitamin guy. I take vitamins just because I should, but you know, I always go, like, every time I pop one in my mouth, I go, is this actually doing anything? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't trust any. It's so sad. Like, I can go on the internet and go, hey, what is the, you know, best men's vitamins for this age? And it go, you know, a couple sites will tell you, this, and I go, are you just trying to sell me product? Like, you know, it's what we've come to in this life. That I don't trust anybody when it comes to trying to buy vitamins.
Exactly. You know, I mean, primarily, again, and I normally don't get sick. I do vitamin C twice a day, and I do hot tea. You know, I do like a black tea or a green tea or something like that. And I'll do it all year round, even during the summer. And for the most part, it seems to keep my system whatever. But whatever happened, again, I do blame it during the holidays because you're seeing people you don't see regularly.
Yeah.
You know, you get a mix of whatever. Who knows what's going on. So, but it happens. Hey, I got it out of my system. I should be good for another couple years. So,
as long as you and I have been at least doing the show. I mean, obviously we've known each other a long time, but you and I doing the show, I don't ever remember you really, really being sick. Like, even during the COVID was kind of like making a thing. Like, did you ever even get COVID?
No, I never got it. Thank God.
You never got it, right?
Yeah, no.
Thank God. Yeah, I don't ever remember you saying that you were sick. Like, you know, for you to not do the show, you know, because you said you weren't feeling well. Like, I obviously you weren't feeling well, which is fine. But I was like, wow, I don't really remember you ever say that you were really sick.
Yeah, even to my wife, I said, I can't remember the last time I was like this. I mean, it must have been a good 15 years. And
That's
about
good.
15 years
That's
ago
good.
is when I really started doing the vitamin C and the black teas like every day.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'll have several cups. I'm not a coffee drinker or anything like that. And when I was a kid, the only time I drank tea was when I was sick.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I thought that was the thing to do. I was, you know, not into that other stuff. But, you know, as you get older and you find the benefits of tea and, you know, the detox that goes along with it and what it does to your system. So I'm a firm believer. And again, I don't know if it's a placebo effect or not, but if I get sick once every 15 years, I guess that's not too bad. So I should be able to take this all the way up until the time that they put me into the ground. So I'm good now.
That's it.
It's like buying a 30-year roof.
Yeah, I just started drinking tea on not a regular basis, but a little more than I used to. Throw some little honey in there, a little squirt of honey. Yeah, I'm good. I do enjoy some tea.
Yeah, good.
Soon I'll be sitting by the fireplace with my pipe and reading books,
There you go.
my glasses, having my tea.
Your tea and zinc.
My tea and zinc.
Yeah.
It's Russ the Boss.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
Well, I guess that's what we have to look forward to, because there ain't much going on in the music world anymore for us independent in the trench
man,
guys. It's getting hard. It's getting hard.
It is getting hard, man. It's really getting hard. You know, we talked about off the air too, like the bands that are bigger than us. You know, and I'm not talking about the super national guys, but you know, like the tiers above us, man. Like everybody's struggling. It's so crazy. It's really sad because music is that one thing that, for the most part, like people love. Like I mean, everybody loves music, right? I think a good portion of music lovers love going to see live music. I mean, you know, I think that's a pretty fair thing to say, but it's just crazy how hard it is anymore, man. Especially for guys like on our level, just between the, you know, the venues closing and so expensive to travel, and I don't know, man. It's just crazy. It's just insane.
We've talked about this before, that sometimes, like, the guys on the higher end, they get disconnected. You know, like the Kisses, the Metallicas, those, like, there is a huge disconnect. And I can understand that because they're living in a world that's been kind of manufactured, fabricated.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they've pulled some great cards. Now, that doesn't mean to say, I mean, like, you know, I mean, Kiss's history has been pretty well written, that they've had their ups and downs. I get it, whatever. But I've always said they never had to go back to playing, you know, your local pubs. And I don't think they ever had to take a job in a factory to make ends meet, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I think that there's a disillusion that's happening with bands on the lower levels. I'm seeing it. Like 10, 15 years ago, for us to get our music distributed on our own independently, you know, like when we were able to do it on iTunes and all, it was like a big deal. Like, oh my God, this is huge, right? Not realizing it, we thought we were making it to the big time. But what we didn't understand is that so were thousands and thousands of other people, without a cash cow to generate the awareness that you're in there, you're just lost in the field, right? And that's a common thing. And I think that most bands that do that route realize that, okay, we have to get our music out there, but we're just lost in a sea of things. It's more or less that it's another little link that we could put, making it easier for people to find us once they find us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like
Yeah.
all of a sudden some unknown band, and it does happen, don't get me wrong, but all of a sudden just pops up and you're like, oh, let me listen to this. No, people will go on Spotify looking for a specific thing. They'll go look for what it is they're trying to find. If they find and discover a band, say they've seen them at a venue or they opened up for another national or something like that, that's where the discovery, in my opinion, happens. But then they go look for that band, they find their website, and then what we do is, as artists, we try to make it as convenient as possible for that listener, for that new audience member, to find everything that they need about us at one page, rather than them just doing a search or whatever, right? But I think the disillusion is that, I mean, I see bands, you know, like, oh, we're on Spotify, and they're selling it while they're on stage and all that kind of stuff, and there's this air about, like, well, we're on Spotify. It's like, well, dude, everybody's on Spotify now. Everybody has it, you know, like, it's not a badge of honor anymore. Like, if you're not, then you're either lost in the shuffle, like, you're not sure what you're doing, or you've come up with another means to generate a certain amount of money to keep things going. Do you know what I'm saying? And for most of us, we haven't figured that out because it's difficult to do. It's really difficult to do. But I think that there's this disillusion that if we do this, we're going to get this. There's none of that. I see how bands are treating each other. There's so much lack of connectivity. We talked about this before, as opposed to when we were younger. I really do feel, and it's not that thing, it's like, oh, back in the day, my day, you know, we used to do all that. There really was a connectivity among bands. I mean, was there always rivalry? Sure there was, man. There had to be, because we talked about this before. At the end of the day, it's every band for themselves. It has to be. If I'm in a band, but I'm spending more time supporting another band, well, it doesn't help my band. Sooner or later, people's going to go, well, maybe I shouldn't even listen to his band. Let me go to the band he's telling me about.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's no connectivity. There's no, even in a business relationship, Everybody doesn't have to be chummy, but there has to be some kind of connectivity enough so that other people are going to want to work with you. Other people are going to want to associate with you and think of you when the time comes. Oh, I need a band for this show. Maybe I should call so-and-so. I'm going to be honest with you. Like this coming year, this new season, I am going to do less shows where I have to book everything. Because booking bands has become, it's always been a headache. It's always been a headache. But it's becoming more and more of a headache. Listen, I didn't get into this to book bands. Like, I don't want to be a band booker. Like, I want my band to play places. Do I do the occasional band booking? Yeah, well, I mean, for a while, we were doing primarily, I would say, 90% of our own shows. So we were booking everything.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know, and then the other 10%, we were just jumping on bills or we were asked to play or something. But, I mean, there was a time when, I mean, most of the shows that we were doing, we were putting together. And there's bands I don't mind working with, and I've tried in other bands. I mean, I've just never, like I said, no one is willing to put the time in, the work in, because everybody thinks they're a headliner. And as soon as you have that mentality, you've lost connectivity. To say that you're not a headliner, you know, I'm not trying to say like you're not, you know, you're not, anybody could be a headliner. I've learned over the years that I have no interest in being a headliner. It's too much hassle. There's too much pressure. All of it comes back on you. Well, that may sound like a cop-out or something like that. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I found that I can enjoy things better and get a better bang for the buck if I'm sharing the stage with other bands. And if you got that band that has to be... Here's an example. I mean, how many times the venue gets all these bands together, they send out the times, you know, the lineup, and it's the first band that goes on at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. They're the first ones to email and go, can we switch with somebody? All of a sudden, we found out our bass player has to work that night, but we can play later.
Almost every show.
Every show. It's like, well, then, if your bass player had to possibly work, then you shouldn't have booked the show. You shouldn't even be doing shows if your bass player's called in on the spur of the moment every week, whenever. And it seems to happen every time you have a show on a Saturday night. So instead of saying, well, this is the deal or whatever, now the venues, some of them kowtow. Okay, we'll throw you on at the end of the night because of whatever. And it screws up everybody else. That's the way it goes. Everybody has to put their time in. And this just happened to me not too long ago. And it's like everybody thinks that they want to be a headliner. Like that they're writing the greatest stuff, that they're putting on the show of a lifetime, that everybody should perk up and pay attention. And maybe they should, but you got to give them a reason to. And I think that's part of the disillusion now. Like, you know, because that wall has been broken, social media and the internet has created this unreality that we are all capable of being Metallicas and stuff. To some degree, we are. We have to believe that. But at the same time, we're all not cut out for the same exact thing. Because if that was the case, you'd have more of them and less of guys in the trenches just struggling.
Yeah, well, I think, too, we've also talked about it before, even on the show, like privately and on the show. It's so easy just to cancel because you're not happy. You know what I mean? Like, because you're just like, well, we don't want to go on first. Well, we don't, you know, I'm not going to give too much away, but we as in my area of bands that we're in, there's a circle of bands that work together. We've all come together and said, we may not book this one venue because of the sound guy. Well, okay, that's legit, right? But because you don't like your time slot, it's just too easy to cancel. You know, stuff happens, of course. You know, God forbid someone gets hurt or, you know, whatever. Maybe there's a death, God forbid, knock on wood. You know, sometimes bands have to cancel, and I totally understand that. But there's so much of, oh, we don't like this, so we're not playing. Oh, we don't like where we are. We don't like this slot. Or we don't want to bring all of our stuff, so we're just not playing. And there's no accountability. If we did that years ago, no. We would, I don't want to say we'd be blackballed, but there would be conversations between promoters, agents, bookers, venues where they go, yeah, this band always cancels. Like, and there's not anymore. There's not that. Because I see it all the time. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there is a band in our area. Now, I don't know if you know them, but it doesn't matter. They cancel 90% of the shows that they are on. They do it all the time. Like, anytime I see them on a bill, it's a joke between me and a couple of my circle of band friends. We go, oh, yeah, they won't be on the bill. Like, they'll cancel And they do. 90% of the time they cancel. And that is not a lie. Why do we keep booking them then? Why do we keep booking them? I don't know. I don't know. Because if that happened to us back in the day, you would never see us. We wouldn't be playing. But there's no accountability, and now nobody cares. And bands just don't care. They just don't care.
They don't.
And everybody has an attitude of, well, I deserve this, well, I deserve that. Well, no, you don't. Especially if you haven't put your time in.
That's what I'm saying. That's the disillusion that I'm seeing. I've actually been on shows that bands, they're heckling other bands, making rib jokes, that type of thing. And I don't know if it's just in jest, but it's like, well, if you don't know each other, why would you do that? It just doesn't, is it to make you feel better? Is it because you realize that this band may be, putting you in your place, but you want to kind of create more of a, you ain't got nothing to say, just don't say it. You don't like them, then either
100%.
Don't watch them or just keep
100%.
quiet. I've watched other bands make bands that are on stage uncomfortable. And I know that's more of a problem, their problem, than the band that's on stage. They're supposed to do the thing. But again, when you are struggling with finding an audience, when you're struggling with just finding a place to play, because here's the thing, in our area, right, there's maybe 2 or 3 places that you could play right now. And Saturday night is the key night anymore to play, okay? Of course. Friday nights used to be a great time to play. Not anymore, man.
Especially now because more people work on Saturdays now than they ever did.
Right. So you got, I'm just going to throw a number out there. You got 25,000 bands all fighting to play 3 venues each week on a Saturday night. And if you're only booking 4 bands a show, that's 12 bands out of 25,000 to get a place to play.
Yeah.
Now, we're into the new year here, not to date the show, but I've already heard that there's venues that are already booked up well into 2025 now with shows. First of all, why would you be doing that with local bands? Because, not to sound like a wet nilly here, but half of them bands aren't even going to be around in 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah, I don't understand that either, bro. I really don't understand why you would be booking that far in advance with local bands.
Yeah, and I understand, if you're booking bigger shows, because more and more of those B, C, and D tier bands are booking, right? Everybody's trying to get this schedule.
Yeah.
And I get it, because you're bringing in a name. But even that, you're running the risk of, if you're booking out a year, 12 months, 18 months in advance for a band. And listen, I know they do it with Guns N' Roses, they've done it with, but you're talking about, almost the guarantee is way different, okay? But when you're doing it with these other bands, where they're changing members all the time, or they've had a track record of cancer stuff. And like you said, with the local bands, there's just no guarantee. Listen, we all want to believe that we're going to be around then and whatever. Booking, say, a cruise or a big festival that far in advance as a band,
right?
Yes, absolutely. I get it, because you want that on your schedule. But
yep.
Even me, my band, my level, I don't want to book 6 months that far ahead, because you don't know what's going to happen. Now, I used to do 6 months, and there are things that I've done, if I'm going to do a tour overseas, or I'm going to do a West Coast tour. I gave myself ample time, so I was booking anywhere from, 8 months to a year out, because that was the plan, right?
Yeah.
But, booking local shows, now you can't get in. You can't get in, and what happens? And bands fall apart, they never have their thing, they wind up canceling, whatever. And that's what I mean, there's this disillusion, and that's making it harder too.
No, you're right. You're 100% right.
It is frustrating, especially when you're trying to figure out what it is to navigate, to be successful with a model that just doesn't seem to, you're putting a model together and the glue you're using just isn't working. And you've tried 3 different kinds of glue, and it's like the one glue doesn't adhere to the old glue that's on there, and you're like, well, now it's completely useless, right? Now what am I going to do? Let me go buy another model. And it's not just the bands. for venues to book that far in advance, or they keep adding bands to the bill because they're trying to get more audience members or sell more tickets. That's a deterrent to me for the audience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah,
oh,
for
man,
sure.
I got to sit
For
through
sure.
another band, or I have to come later, or what's going on here? Like, yeah, I want to get there and I want to enjoy myself.
sure.
But I don't want to sit through bands that I don't have any interest in, or whatever. And this is what's happening, part of that disillusion. And we're all at fault. You know, we're all victims, and we're all at fault all at the same time. You know,
And really, if you cut down on the bands, I mean, look, 3 or 4.
if you got a national and you're doing 4, that's still a lot of bands. Now, I've been on some nationals where they got 5,
Yes,
6 bands
it is, yes.
building up. Now, that's just telling me that the nationals not bringing in the audience, or the nationals asking so much money, the venue can't cover the spread.
Yes. Yep.
Right? I mean, I'm sure there's greed into this too, for some degree.
think?
But listen, back in the old days, even with, like, say, the Empire, the Galaxy, or Bonnie's Rocks, in this area, in the Philly, Jersey area, it was 3 bands. You had your opener, your headliner, your closer, and the closer still had a huge audience. Now it's
So,
like,
sometimes it was even 2. Sometimes it was 2. It was just the opener and the headliner.
yeah. Well, that's a headliner that was definitely,
Well, a headliner, yeah.
like a regional band that could really pull its numbers.
Yeah,
But they were also playing, you could play 2-3 nights in a row and still pack the house. So here you're like, you got 4 or 5 bands, and it's like, I don't know. 3 bands to me is a great night.
That's a nice sweet spot.
Yeah, for everybody.
It's a nice
for
sweet
every
spot.
band on the bill. For every band on the bill.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree 100%.
I know. It's terrible if you just take a second and go back over. We just sound like a bunch of old guys complaining, why me, that kind of thing. And it is sad. It is sad that, like, that's, like, we might as well just be
It is
sitting
sad.
around a garage and just kind of, complaining about, and then nothing gets done.
No, it is sad because I love the scene, and I love music, and I love to watch people create good stuff. I mean, that makes me excited when I see a great band, especially if they're doing great things. But the scene, the industry is so hard now. It's hard to watch great bands do great things because it's not, unfortunately, the industry is not made or built for us. It's really not.
No,
It's
not
just not.
anymore. We are dinosaurs. Things have changed. I still believe there's people with standards out there. And I think there's scenes that really adhere to these certain standards. They have to be. That's where the dividing line happens. The problem is getting past all that. Getting past that point where the dividing line does count. You have to work harder now. You have to work smarter. You have to work harder. And you really got to be on top of this stuff. And the problem is when there's only bar venues that have bands perform available to play, you're not going to get that standard. You're just not going to get it.
Right.
Because they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
The bands are secondary. Do you see what I mean? They're secondary.
Yeah.
That's
for sure. It's for sure.
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
All right, let's get into the topic of the show. And that topic is getting your music heard. Now, we did kind of touch upon it early on in this podcast about Spotify and distribution and stuff like that. But we're going to get some insight from Chris about other ways that maybe you can get yourself heard. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just distribution. Maybe there's other ways he's got. Chris, what do you think, buddy? How you getting your music heard?
Burn CDs, drive by neighborhoods, and throw them out the window.
That's right. Put them in a little clear plastic bag with a rock.
When we talked about doing this, I'd been thinking about it. And of course, obviously, everybody's thing is, Apple Music, Spotify, whatever. And we talked about that earlier in the show, even today. I totally understand that because I just had I guess a few weeks back, I had a gentleman come up to me. He was asking me about my band. And I was like, I told him a little history. He was like, are you guys on Spotify? And I was kind of like, yeah, we are. And he was like, oh, cool. Like, I'll check his out. And I was like, that's the one cool thing about Spotify. If you meet someone that's interested in hearing your band, because we didn't have that back in the day. You know what I mean? We just go, oh, this is my band. To be on Spotify, that's one of the cool things for those people that, because there are people that just maybe wouldn't come out and buy your stuff, but they do want to hear your band. And I run across that because I'm in death metal. I run across that a lot. But yeah, like I was able to tell the guy, yeah, like, you know, are you on Spotify? Yeah, I am. And he may go listen to that stuff and he may be into it, which is super cool. But I've said it a million times on this show. I have been with Bandcamp a long time. Believe in that website when it comes to supporting local artists because of we get a bigger percentage. We've also talked about the first Fridays of the month where 100% of the proceeds go to the band or artist. Now, at the time of recording this, I do know that there has been some shakeups at Bandcamp. Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their job because they got sold and bought by somebody else. I'm not sure the whole logistics of all that. So I don't know at the time of you hearing this, I don't know what differences there will be. But at the time that we are recording this, I am a huge Bandcamp supporter. I surf through Bandcamp on a regular basis. Now, I still buy physical media. I still buy vinyl. I still buy CDs. So if bands are selling CDs, I will buy them through their Bandcamp or the label. Throw on like a small indie label. I'll do that too. I am a strong believer in, especially with social media, word of mouth. You know, word of mouth is a thing that works for, even in 2024, it still works. It works for movies. It works for books. It works for TV shows. It works for word of mouth is just a thing. Like it just still works to this day. So social media, obviously, YouTube obviously is a good way to get your music heard because I know a ton of people that subscribe to YouTube TV, or I mean, even myself, like sometimes I'll surf YouTube, you know, for music, or maybe not necessarily music, but I want to see, you know, because there are bands that still make videos. Now, I don't know that maybe you can enlighten me. I don't know how much you know of the YouTube market or business, how that works. Is it better? Is it worse than Spotify? Or, you know, how does that work money wise? If you know, I'm not sure how much you know of that. I don't. I do know that if you watch an ad, people get paid. That part of it I know. But getting your music heard, I think that is one of the things that has followed through with from back in the day, as they say. It's really word of mouth. It's, you know, just, well, hey man, there's this band and I love this band, right? Like, I mean, love or hate Eddie Trunk, it's what he has made a career out of. You know, and honestly, kind of catching up on a lot of my podcasts from the new year, and I just heard his, because I don't listen to his show live, I just heard his podcast of, he was doing the top records of 2023. And, you know, he had his listeners call in, and I was listening to some of the people, and usually it's the same, you know, bands that he talks about on a daily basis. But there were a few bands that people said that I was like, oh, really? I'm going to have to check these out. And not that I'm not a huge Eddie Trunk guy, but I will, you know, I mean, listen, the guy's been doing radio for 40 years, right? Like he knows something. He's had his listeners call up and be like, you know, hey, check this record out, or, you know, I love this record. This record's one of my favorites of the year. And I discovered two bands just by that simple, you know, hour podcast. So again, that just proves to me that word of mouth is still a thing. Like it still works to this day. I mean, you know, how many TV shows, how many movies have been saved by, you know, the big studios cancel something, and then the rise up by the fans, you know, maybe put it on a different platform or save that program. And it's just all word of mouth, man. And I'm a total big believer in word of mouth. It's worked for the biggest bands now to, you know, and it will always work. Word of mouth is just a great thing. So if you could spread the word about some bands, that's a great thing to do.
I agree. There is still a number of ways for bands to get heard. I think that nowadays, like you said, the first thing that everybody thinks of is like, you know, Spotify and all of those type of platforms. They just keep in mind they cost money. You know,
money.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. I mean, you know, you're getting a bigger reach, but you're also, like we've talked about, you're getting lost in a sea of hundreds of thousands of millions of other songs from all different tiers. And, you know, one of the complaints that people have about Spotify is that you pretty much, you know, you got a lot of non-artist, non-musician type of, you know, releases that are out there. Like some people are just releasing because they can release.
Right.
I mean, it's well over 1 million a month now. You know, you know, during COVID, the numbers just kept spiking because there was nothing else going on. There was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
So, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, it's a necessary evil. Like, you have to do it. It definitely doesn't make you a better band than everybody else. What it does is it gives you and your audience more accessibility to your music. The ability to go, yes, I am here, and I am here, and I am. It's becoming just another link on the chain so that you can kind of box people into your website or social media so that they'll stay informed, that they'll stay engaged, if that makes sense to everybody. Because if your audience goes to a web page and it's just a manila envelope of this is when the band started, here's the pictures of the band and who's in the band, but there's nowhere to go. You're not giving them shows. You're not giving them links to get your music, unless it's all self-contained. And there was a time where your websites and all, you know, even Facebook had offered you could have your music right there so that people could stream it or whatnot. I'm not sure if they're doing that anymore because I don't see it.
I don't think they are, dude.
And
I don't think they are. MySpace used to do it too, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're even making it difficult to upload videos now. Like, it's not as easy as it was. You got to have certain formats, and they want a certain thing. And it's like, because for a while I was doing, years ago, did real well on YouTube. And I've talked about this before for videos. And then I started to see a decline in it. And I went to start doing videos on Facebook, and I was doing really well there. So I figured, well, you know, I'll still put them on YouTube, but I was pushing Facebook. And now Facebook, I don't do that great on the videos either because, you know, Facebook has pushed everything to be sponsored, boosted. You have to pay for it. And like I said, it's in the long run, you find out that it doesn't really help all that much.
No.
So is it really worth paying for it? No, probably not. You know what I mean? You could just do a couple extra posts because no one's seeing them either. So what difference does it make? So it's a necessary evil just to give convenience to your audience, to your potential audience, as they're doing their search or their viewership, so to speak. There is that small percentage of people that just randomly discover you. But I mean, if you're counting on that, it's such a small segment of the pie, you might as well, you know. I'm a firm believer in that the greatest thing that you can do is you got to get out there and play. You got to bring the music to the people. But unfortunately, as we've talked about in this show and previous shows, it's getting harder and harder to play. But I still think it's a crucial piece to the puzzle. For a while, people were playing less and they wanted to do more digital distribution because that seemed to become the model. And then with COVID and all, people weren't playing. And we found out quickly how important that was to the puzzle. And now, since then, it's been ruined. And it's very difficult, as we talked about at the top of the show, to find shows, to book shows, to be involved in, you know, anything. That crucial piece to the puzzle is now missing. Case in point, we played a show during a major snowstorm. People still came out, nowhere near the audience that anybody expected, unfortunately, because of the weather. But some people still ventured out. Actually, by the time the show was happening, the weather had gotten far greater, so it made it much easier. But however, I did notice that it was a massively younger crowd that was there rather than, say, some of our standard audience members. Simply because older people go, you know what, I'm not going out. It's not worth it.
I'm not going out. Yeah.
Younger people, they got sets of stones that say, you know what, I'm not worried about this. I'm getting out there. Or maybe they walk to it, you know what I mean? Or they carpool or whatever.
Right.
But the thing is we didn't make as much on the show as we originally had expected, simply because, you know, weather's unpredictable. But because we played the show, we were the only band that sold merchandise. One, we were the only band to offer merchandise because that's part of our model. And we were able to sell merchandise because of the strength of our set. There was people that hadn't seen us before, and some people that had come back to see us and said, well, I didn't pick up everything last time. So without that merch, to me, it would not have been as successful as a show. And we talked about this before. For a band that works the circuit, that goes on the road, that tours, that plays out regularly, merch is a key factor. It's twofold. Yeah, it's a money maker. Just if not to necessarily put into your pocket and live high off the hog, it's either to put gas in the vehicle to get to the next show, or it funds the next project. It goes into the kitty to fund what we do. Yep. Even if it was nothing but keychains or CDs or a couple t-shirts. It doesn't have to be outrageous stuff, but enough to kind of generate. So the playing out was key. Having it available and giving people something to take home. To me, playing live and selling merch is the best way to get heard, because you have a captivated audience even for a short time. You're not completely lost in the mix. And as you said years ago to me, it's one fan at a time per show. And that's how you build it. And listen, that's slow. Yeah. That's a slow process that could drive you nuts. But at the same time, if you're putting in your due diligence, just like going to the website and you're providing that link or that list of links for people that want to just kind of, click around. When you're at the show, having a small merch table does this exact same thing. They come up to you. Do you have anything to buy? Because I'm hearing that question more and more because bands are not having merch.
Yes.
So we were on the bill, this particular show, with 4 other bands. Out of the 4 bands, 1 band had merch. In my head, that seems almost crazy not to have merch. Yeah. I think you feel the same exact way.
100%. And, and two, you also get that, a very small percentage of, people that'll buy something out of the kindness of their heart because they look at us as artists or bands, whatever, and they'll go, oh my God, these guys traveled, I liked what they did. We may never see that person again, but out of the kindness of their heart, they'll go, I'll buy a CD or I'll buy a shirt. And even if they give it to somebody, they'll still do it because they appreciate what we do, what we've done. And, they'll do it because they're kind. So if you are the only band with merch, I mean, that's, you're going to sell something. And that's another thing too. Like, with that, you hope that person comes back and brings somebody with them, right? Like you go, oh man, I've seen these guys before, and you bring a few friends. Oh, you guys will love these guys. I've seen them before. And now you got 3 or 4 more people in the room.
Right. And again, with the merch, a lot of times you will get unexpected sales. And here's 2 unexpected sales that could possibly happen. And it's happened number of times for my band. Bartender comes up at the end and they purchase something. Listen, just because they're not standing at the stage doesn't mean that they're not listening. They're working, they're doing their job. And a bartender, they see hundreds of bands every year. You know what I mean? How much of it that they probably can't stand? Because they're working hard for their money. Yeah. For them to purchase something, that's a plus. I've actually had bartenders, barmaids, they've actually written on coasters, they really enjoyed the set, safe travels, whatever. They don't have to do that. No one has to do that. The other unexpected sometimes merch sale that you'll get is the venue owner, because they really enjoyed your set. They thought you came off to be professional. We've talked about that on the show. It's how you present yourself, because they're going to want to have you back. Whether they're really listening to it, because again, venue owners, they listen to hundreds of bands a year. They see hundreds of bands. They book bands all the time. All the time. And I don't think that they're just buying for everybody. I think you have to make your mark. And a lot of that is professionalism. That's within the industry, but it's also giving you, like we talked about before, they say that you're only as good as the show that's coming up. But if you play that show well, you're setting up for future shows. Bands want to work with you again. Listen, I've had nationals request us because we've worked with them before. We've either helped them out with backline. I've worked on national bands' equipment right there in the back room, because they're traveling themselves. They don't have a tech. Right. Like a lot of us musicians, I just so happen to know how to work on guitars and basses. However, I'm a plug-and-play guy. I don't know much about effects and that kind of thing. So, there's some things I can do and some things I can't do. So, but my point is it's having that skill set or that professionalism that leaves an impression. And that's another way of getting yourself heard. It's the impression that you give at that moment. And like you said earlier, a lot of bands, earlier in this show, a lot of bands just don't care anymore. No. And if you're a band that cancels all the time, Do you think someone's going to remember you for your set or your music? That band that you talked about at the top of the show that cancels 90% of the time, does their music have any bearing on when you think about them? Or do you think about them that, you see their name and you go, cancel 90% of the time?
100% cancel. 100%. As soon as I see their name on a bill, I go, well, that's one band that's not playing.
So that band's been heard of, but not in the way that you want.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Right.
to me, how you present yourself, it speaks volumes. By not saying certain things, speak volumes. That means you don't go up there and you're not heckling other bands. You don't go up there and you're giving the sound guy a hard time. You don't go up there and you give the venue a hard time, or you're not late or whatever. You get up there and you let your music do the talking, and you get off, on and off, do your job.
Yeah.
Then socialize. Don't socialize while you're on stage. You know, everybody's so quick to, oh man, you got to feed the ego, If you just tell the guys, listen, if you give me a minute or two, let me clear this up so the other band gets up here so we can keep the music going. I'm happy to talk to you at the merch table. Or send somebody to the merch table and then send everybody over there. But that speaks volumes. That's a different way of getting heard. You got to have merch. You got to have some kind of CD. Even in this digital world, CD sales still count, especially for bands like us. You could burn your own CDs. CDRs play just as well on most systems today, unlike they did 15 years ago, 20 years ago. CDRs didn't play everywhere. Now they play, right?
Now
the burning technology is so much better. As long as you're not charging $25 for a burnt CD that you wrote on, if you make it affordable, $3, $4, $5, man, people will buy that stuff up. They will buy that stuff up.
Absolutely.
Because the markup is high to begin with. Even on the professionally done CDs, the markup is high.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to keep your costs down, then keep the cost down of the audience. Make it affordable. That show that I was talking about, that we were the only ones that had merch, we sold merch. We sold several CDs, some stickers, that kind of thing, some stuff we throw in. The next day, that particular individual went through all of our, and I didn't tell them, I don't usually sell that kind of stuff. I'm giving them what they want. I gave them a good show. They wanted merch. I got the merch. I don't go around saying, because maybe I'm at the age, you know what I mean? And like I said, to social media, I got to it late in the whole grand scheme of things. I don't go, hey, check us out on Facebook, like us here. No, I got, notifications that most of our platforms, this particular individual wound up subscribing and or liking. And that's it, because we provided this person with what they wanted. A good show, music that they enjoyed, and they got to take something home. So then, yes, we provided ours, they bought something back, whatever, but then they did one extra by going through the list and going like, subscribe, whatever. And like you said, that's how you build an audience. That's how you get heard.
That's it.
That's it, man. I mean, there's no shortcut to it. I've watched guys buy likes. I've watched guys buy streams. I've watched guys buy press. And it doesn't matter, because 6 months, they're gone. That's it. It just gets lost. Statistically, last year, they said that press releases don't do what people think they should be doing, ought to do, hope they do, want them to do. It just doesn't. It doesn't. Word of mouth, like Chris said earlier, is still the strongest thing. People go, hey, I need a landscaper. Does anybody know of a landscaper in this area that they would recommend? When you're given a recommendation, it's so much stronger than like, man, I'm not sure. Which guy do I choose? And it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you get it on a recommendation, that gives you like 75% fighting power. All right, well, listen, it worked for Chris. Let me try it out.
Yeah.
Let me see, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And
100%.
That, and again, I'm just using a landscaper, that landscaper, knowing that they got a recommendation from a previous customer, will, one, try to honor that recommendation by working even harder to get the new customer. So they're getting a new customer and they're trying to make good on the old customer all at the same time, because they know then they'll get two calls back. One now equals two, and two may go to four, and so on and so forth. And that's how you build an audience. That's how you build an audience. That's how you get heard.
It's very true. I mean, and especially in what we do in our genre of music, and not everybody that listens plays our genre of music, but in our genre of music, merch is so important. T-shirts and CDs are so important in our genre, especially T-shirts, They are so important in the kind of music that you and I both do. I mean, like, that's a thing. Like, our genre, merch is like a separate entity. It's a whole different experience with what the kind of music that we do. And, wearing a band shirt, I mean, you can't get any more. I mean, there's no better publicity than someone wearing a shirt and wearing it out to somewhere, or wearing it to a concert, one of their favorite bands. If you're wearing like a local band shirt when you go see your favorite national, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Get out there, play, get some merch, put on a good show. Best way to get heard. You got anything else you want to add?
No, sir, I do not.
All right, if you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmickvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice. You can find The Cosmick Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of The Cosmick Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmickvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmick Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to the Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.